Well, each week a group of insiders joins me to offer perspective on some of the week's top stories. This week sounding off on a venture studio victory, if you will. High Alpha raising more than $100 million. Graduation rates at the college level on the increase in Indiana. And Indy scores yet another Final Four. Our insiders this week are Clear Object CEO John McDonald. Also, Indianapolis Colts Vice President of Special Projects and Historical Affairs, Larry Hall. And entrepreneur and community advocate, Danielle McDowell. And welcome one and all to the Insiders. On a busy week this week, especially in the tech space, I mentioned High Alpha, the venture studio, raising $100 million in funding to continue to support startups and do what it does. Danielle, I'll start with you. High Alpha in 3 years, I think, has raised $135+ million, so quite a success story.
A huge success story. I mean, how exciting for our state. I think it highlights a couple different things that show how Indianapolis is really becoming a hub for technology. Number one, bringing outside capital into the state. It is a huge nod to our state that we are doing well, and people from outside the state of Indiana are putting their money where their mouth is. Secondly, I think it's a really great community win because we have dollars that are going into the upcoming generations of hungry entrepreneurs. So we have dollars that are not only being deployed to allow for scalability through their capital fund, but you also have the studio fund, of which they are going in and working one-on-one with entrepreneurs to give them the mentorship and the guidance that they need to launch and scale businesses. So,
and also the four former Target execs started this new fund to help help others. I guess.
Right. Yeah. And what better than to tap into a group that has the foundation and the knowledge base to pass on that knowledge base to the next generation. Yep. I know at the Speakeasy that was huge for us, and I think that this is just we're in the beginning innings of this, right? So if you go and rewind the clock of what it looked like 50 years ago in Silicon Valley or Austin, Texas, I believe that's where Indianapolis is today, and we've got a bright future. Yeah,
and John, I think it's a venture studio, and now it bills itself as one of the largest in the world. But when you talk about being a venture studio, you talk about the High Alpha model.
That's kind of a new concept. I think people are really familiar with the fund concept, but this idea of a cultivated experience that has maybe a higher degree of success and outcome. And I'd also note one of the first wins for the Next Level Fund, the very bold program that the Indiana put together with the governor's support. First fund to announce that they're part of that too as well, which is really cool.
Also on the tech side, a story out of northern Indiana, the University of Notre Dame, that we had on our Inside Edge and on statewide radio this week. The Idea Center at the University of Notre Dame says it surpassed its goal for launching student and faculty startups. They indicated the goal was 16, they 27 in the first year.
Yeah, one of the criticisms that the team from South Bend has often heard is that their eyes tend to look a lot towards Chicago and not enough south towards Indianapolis. And so they don't often get on the radar screen in ways that they should. This is a profile raising move that they're doing. It's a wonderful thing. I had a chance to pop my head in and watch it a little bit. A really great first class kind of an event, and great for them to be doing that together.
And quickly,
with the university.
do you think that Notre Dame, it seems as though Notre Dame is getting a little more,
yes,
actually a lot more
they were all
engaged.
over this, and now they're beginning to learn that, hey, we need to have some visibility in Indianapolis and in this venture capital scene and entrepreneur scene all across our state. It's really great to see.
Education is a big part of the tech scene in Indiana and everywhere, of course, around the country. The Infosys Foundation had a major event on the IU campus this week aimed at addressing the digital divide in classrooms and kicking off the Pathfinders Institute, which really attracted Larry teachers from all over the country to come in to learn hands-on and really engage, then go back into the classrooms and again really teach technology maybe in a more meaningful way.
It's a big deal, right? Over nearly 800 people from almost every state in the country came to learn about this digital gap and how they can be closed, at least somewhat, because we're behind, let's face it. It's something that we really need to continue to work on. I know in our state we've mandated now that this has to be a part of, the computer science learning piece has to be a part of the curriculum, and it's a very, very big deal, as we all know, going forward. Everything's technology-based.
Yeah, and as we attract and keep large corporations, large companies with financial wherewithal that have foundations, the impact that those companies have beyond the jobs is the ability to do things like this.
Absolutely. It's a very big deal for our state, and I think the genesis of hopefully a lot more to come.
Another study that came out this week talking about education. I'll get your thoughts on this, Larry. Hoosier graduation rates continue to rise. A report from the Indiana Commission for Higher Education. Graduation rates among Hoosier college students higher than ever, saying that 38.5% of students graduated on time. That's up 4%.
Which is awesome, but I think we need to take this news in a balanced way, because it's great that we're on the rise. We need to continue this piece, but obviously there's a lot of things that come from this, and one that I noticed to delve into a little bit deeper, those that go to a main campus probably have more resources available to them to be able to graduate in those 4 years, and yet if you stretch it out to 6, it goes up to 59%, almost 60% of the people. But I do think we have a lot to do still in the low income and minority gap that exists with college graduation rates. So let's applaud what's happened with kudos to the success, but let's also look at the ways we can build for everyone and those special needs areas.
Absolutely. I mean, I think when you're starting to look at what it means to build a talent pipeline and look at not only the businesses that are being impacted by building a bridge between the connectivity between businesses and students, I think will allow for an exposure rate that will increase graduation rates at the end, right? So it's all about connectivity, giving access where resources are abundant, and continue to pull that number out from
As you look at college graduation rates, important certainly, but around the country, and I think maybe increasingly here, it's maybe not all about four-year colleges and institutions anymore. An important piece, but there are so many other pathways from an education standpoint. Do you sense that is gaining traction here in Indiana?
Today, we need to understand that software developers, project managers, cybersecurity engineers, these are like the plumbers and electricians of the data economy. And we need other pathways than just a system that still puts 60% of its incoming freshmen behind the 8 ball and even getting out of there on time. Got to have other ways to be able to create a trade education system that we can really avail ourselves of as businesses in the tech business.
Yep. One of the emerging industries, if you will, in Indiana, the next big thing, according to some people at the state level, aviation and aerospace. Universities like Purdue, a big asset for the state of Indiana, Rolls-Royce, GE Aviation, BAE Systems, a number of companies in the state. Indiana Secretary of Commerce Jim Schillinger in the UK for the Farnborough Air Show, touting Indiana's strengths in that sector. As you look at traditional manufacturing and those types of things, there's a real feeling that aerospace, aviation can be kind of that next big thing.
Absolutely. I think that if you roll back the clock where we were 10 years ago in technology, I do believe that that's where we are with aerospace today. And so I think it's exciting that there are representatives out there that are touting what it is that we're doing, and we need those change makers out there talking about what's good, talking about what's happening, and talking about what Indiana resources are able to bring to the industry.
This particular event obviously is huge, right? People come from all over the world, and so I think the fact that you can put yourself in front of and face-to-face with others in that aerospace piece is a huge thing. It's a very big deal.
Yep. Another investment this week in a traditional industry, steel. New steel producer opening up operations in Shelbyville, $50 million investment that will create jobs, a number of jobs in the state, 70 jobs or so in Shelby County.
Yeah, I think what's remarkable about that to me, Gary, is if you had been putting that amount of money into creating jobs just 10 years ago, 70 jobs, you'd had an extra zero on that. It would have been 700, right? And I think what we're seeing there, we're getting this too as we go around the state and look at different manufacturing companies with Mayor Fadness and others from Fishers, and we're seeing the future is really a choice between less jobs because of automation or no jobs because we go out of business because we don't have it. And so again, the future is about automation, and that kind of investment to be able to get that level of jobs is the new norm.
Yeah, we talk about new things, disruptive technologies, disruptive companies. Maybe the scooters, the electric scooters, be getting a lot of attention in downtown.
Talking about it. I don't know.
In downtown Indianapolis, a lot of attention. A couple of companies came in. They were kind of banned, if you will. Now regulations are in place. Danielle, do you think that Indianapolis has its arms around this now and can kind of everyone can live together in peace?
Well, I think what happened here was, here are two young companies who are, startup, they're innovators. What is it that they do well? Disruption, right? And they break rules. And I think that is exactly what we experience. And, sometimes if you get into, the startup world here in Indiana specifically, maybe you learn to play the game a little too closely. You start following a little more rules. So I thought it was really exciting to see two companies come in, bend the rules a little bit and really show what value add their product had to our city. So being able to see how quickly and nimbly our government responded, I think was really a testament to the fact that they're listening to the people. And secondly, who doesn't want to have fun on a scooter?
Exactly.
Come
exactly. 20 seconds, Larry. Indy gets another Final Four. No surprise, really. They do it better than anyone else. Ninth Final Four in 2026.
It's an amazing thing, right? I think we have beautiful facilities here, but it's the people that make it. We talk about this all the time. People in Indiana are very gregarious. Obviously, the hospitality industry does a great job. The Lucas Oil Stadium in particular that's hosting it is fantastic. So not a surprise, but I think we should never ignore the piece that this is a big deal for us.
We're in fuego.
That's right.
We're on fire.
Next one in 2021, so just 3 years from now. Larry Hull, John McDonald, Danielle McDowell, thank you all for being on.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for being here.
We'll be right back.